Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk with RJ. If this is your first time listening, please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow so you know exactly when we release brand new episodes. Also, don't forget to share. If you like what you hear, share it with everyone you know. I heard something on one of the YouTubers that I follow, and this person always has very reliable information when it comes down to discussing military affairs and veterans affairs and anything relating to veterans or members of our military, active and retired, etc. And one of the things that was just brought to my attention was the fact that our very own United States government, I don't know how many Democrats and how many Republicans, but the very fact that politicians in general are discussing the possibility of canceling the compensation for disability for veterans who went to war when others wouldn't. And I'm willing to bet that the vast majority of people who are making these arguments in Congress and the Senate, et cetera, I'm willing to bet that virtually none of them, if any at all, ever put on a uniform and went to war or served. You know, we don't get a disability benefit for losing our legs, losing hands, post traumatic stress. We don't get those benefits. We get compensation. It's a little bit of extra money to help negate the costs and expenses that are there because we went to battle for everybody else so that they can stay in their cozy little beds and not have to worry about terrorists coming over, kicking in their doors and demanding that they conform to a radical form of Islam or or some other type of tyrannical government that we're fighting against. We went so others wouldn't have to. And this also includes veterans from Vietnam, veterans who didn't even want to go to war, veterans who didn't even want to enlist, but were forced to leave their families, were forced to leave their lives behind and go fight a war that they wanted nothing to do with. That also includes them. That includes any veteran that has gotten a disability. And the reason why, one of the things that they make that the government, these officials are making is that, well, you know, the budget has increased substantially since 2001, and it's billions and billions and billions of dollars are being flooded, are poured into various veterans organizations and stuff like that. Well, what happened in 2001? Two planes hit the twin towers. Another plane hit the Pentagon, and you know, regardless if that was a conspiracy or not, the fact that it happened, we went to war because of it, and it lasted over 20 years. And then, not to mention we are in war in Afghanistan for years and years, for decades, trying to take care of this war. And then Biden gets sworn in office, and then not too long after that, he decides just to pull everybody out, leaving all of our equipment back there rather than flying it back because they're all like, you know, it costs a lot of money to move all that stuff, and we're just going to save money, just leave it there. They didn't detonate anything; they just left it there. They didn't detonate planes, which is actually protocol that if your plane goes down in enemy territory or something, or you're not around American territory, you're supposed to detonate your plane. You're supposed to put an explosive on there and blow it up so that the enemy can't get the information, can't get the technology. They can't use that plane against you. We just left everything there. It's unreal how many times Obama and Biden have negotiated with terrorists. It's unreal how these people are negotiating with terrorists when America doesn't negotiate with terrorists. That's our slogan. It's like one of our biggest bumper stickers. And they're negotiating with terrorists and giving them our aircraft. They're giving them our trucks, stuff that was meant to defend American lives. They're giving that to terrorists. And then they're going out and they're sending billions and billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight their war. We're supporting other countries to fight all these different wars. We're paying all this money to all these other countries to live a safe life when they're giving nothing to us in return. We're footing the bill of basically everything out there. And the people that are protecting this nation, government officials, really want to say, you know what? You're making too much money. You don't need to have that. Now, the caveat that they're discussing, and this is just like the initial stages of the discussion, is saying that if you make over a certain amount of money, now this is not after taxes. This is not you personally. This is your entire household. So regardless if you're living in a place like Los Angeles, California, where everything is extraordinarily expensive and you're living basically paycheck to paycheck, unless you're one of the top one percenters in California who doesn't have to worry about that. The fact is that if you're living in a very expensive city or state and you're making, like I think it's like $125,000 or more a year, then they will take away your disability compensation. They take that away. And some people are like, "Well, that's not a lot. That you don't need that little bit of money that you're getting from the government." That I understand what you're saying from a financial perspective, but look how much money we are hemorrhaging. Look how much money we're throwing out to other parts of the world, and they want to take it from the people who need it. Not every person that is making over $100,000 is actually thriving. You might think that they are, but maybe they have a payroll. Maybe they're barely making that 125 or 130,000. Maybe they have about out of that $130,000 that they're making a year, maybe they have about $100,000 worth of expenses they have to pay. We don't know everyone's financial situation, but the very fact that our government is discussing taking away the benefits, or excuse me, the compensation for members of the military who have tried to work their butts off and make something of their lives, even though they live every day with these disabilities and these various struggles, like having post traumatic stress disorder, where you can't, like, I have PTSD. I mean, I suffer depression, and I've said this in a previous broadcast a while back, but I have PTSD, and one of the biggest things that I deal with is depression. Like, I came back with both my legs, both my feet, both my arms, both my hands, and I felt really guilty that I didn't give more, and I wanted to. I tried to volunteer. I tried very hard to volunteer for missions that were actually more dangerous than what I was doing on the day to day. And the leader who was in charge of me, he told me no. And um, one day I pulled him aside and I asked him like, "Hey," and I said his rank. I don't want to say his rank just because I don't want to put any undue pressure on him or any suspicion or anything like that, because I know he meant well. He was trying to do what he wanted a clear conscience when he went home, and I don't blame him from that. I just kinda suffer the results of that choice. But he told me, he's like, "Look, you're the moto." Like, in the Marine Corps, we have, like, this word called moto, which is short for motivator or motivation. Like, when someone's moto, they're like, "Yeah, I wanna be around this guy, positive vibes, highly motivated, can inspire people around him." That was me. And, I wasn't a perfect Marine, but when it came down to being a Marine, I loved it. I loved every second of it. And I loved inspiring people. I love lifting up people. I love, calling cadence when we ran. When people were getting ready to go for a meritorious board, I would go train them by answering questions because I ate that stuff up. I loved it. When I went to Iraq and I asked that leader who was in charge of me, how come he won't let me? And of course, I pulled him aside and with all respect, I asked him like, how come you won't let me go on any of these missions? And he closed his door and said, "Well, because you're a key person in this platoon. You keep everybody motivated and of high morale. If I lose you, I lose them. I can't risk losing you." And the thing was that nobody else in my platoon was volunteering. I was. So when I heard that other members of our unit were getting killed from mortars and IEDs and other engagements and stuff like that, where they're dealing with the enemy, I started really feeling guilty that I got special protections and they didn't. And the thing that really hits me, that really weighs heavily on me, is what right do I have to be here when there's a father or son who didn't get that? There's a father who never had met his unborn child or his brand new born child because the child was born while he was in war. He was looking forward to going home in a couple months. We would see these letters. We would hear the stories. I get to go home and see my son. Finally, I get to meet my son. I'm excited. And he dies before he can go home, but I'm still alive. I know God is in control of who lives and who dies. I understand that. I don't question that. It just doesn't make it easier to deal with that guilt of feeling that I was protected unfairly. I didn't get the same protection that other people did. And I deal with that depression all the time. I put on a smile and try to laugh and make light of things like that because I don't want to let it beat me, but it doesn't mean that I don't deal with it. Every time I see veterans when I go to the VA, I go to the West Los Angeles VA. Every time I go to that VA center, for the hospital, whatever the case may be, I see service members who lost their legs, lost their just there's so much, and so many of them are homeless. They look impoverished. Like, our veterans just do not look good. Yeah, there are lots of organizations out there, and they do a lot of great work. And I'm not trying to take anything from them, but this situation of dealing with veterans is a lot bigger than you can imagine. There's so many of us, especially when it comes down to living in blue states. Some of you may not like that, but the fact is, it's true. There are more homeless veterans and veterans struggling in blue states where the government is blue than there are any other red states. It's just the policies just tend to make more poor people. And, it seems like we're giving more money to other places that don't need it than, I mean, because when Obama was president, he bailed out all the banks and all the other wealthy, and we got nothing. When Trump was president, we got bailed out. We got a stimulus. We got money in our pocket. And everyone's like, oh, wait, you could actually do that? Like, yeah, you can do that. This is to help you out and get you guys back on your feet so we can get back and open up the state again, open up your country again. We're going to leave that opening the state to the government or to each one's governor because they know better than I do what's going on in their own state. And rather than hurry up and say, you know what, let's just everyone stay at home, shut down the entire government for 2 weeks. Let's everyone quarantine in the house, and then we're going to go back out and we're going to face this together. It should be done by that time. No, they didn't do that. They wanted to drag their feet. Meanwhile, they're taking a pension. All of them are getting money. Every time we shut down the government, all these federal employees got to, get fired or get laid off, because the government's shut down. Now they can't work. There's no budget. But guess who's still making money? The politicians. I know some really good CEOs and or CEOs, excuse me, CEOs and other company owners that when the company is doing really badly, they will often cut their pay before they cut their employees' pay. They will get paid last. A good business owner gets paid last. They put their employees and their products and everything else before themselves. Yet we see these politicians out there going to work, wasting millions and millions of tax dollars on just like unnecessary and juvenile stuff just to prove a point against Trump. I mean, again, as I always say, if you like Trump or don't like Trump, look at everything from a neutral perspective because again, if we're not careful, this stuff is right now, the stuff that is right now focused on and happening to Trump can happen to you. How would you feel if you were indicted and then in the actual indictment, and by definition, an indictment is supposed to read the charges brought against you. It's supposed to let you know what you're being charged with. And it's so bad. This indictment is so bad that even members of CNN are saying, I don't like this. There's no crime laid out right here. They have an indictment that says no specifics as to what crime Trump is being charged with. There's no way this is going to trial. There's nothing here. They're just saying it. And then when press asked the district attorney or attorney general in New York, hey, like, what are the charges? How come you don't make any specifics as to what the charges you're accusing Trump are? And he's like, well, the law makes no such demand. Like, so you're basically saying you're saying in legalese, as we like to call it, that I can indict you, and they say that you can indict a ham sandwich, but it doesn't mean it's going to get put in jail. But you can indict anything. So an indictment doesn't mean anything. It just means like, okay, we're bringing in charges against you. But then the indictment itself has no specific charges. And then you're going to say, well, the law doesn't make any demands. So that's legalese for saying I can put anyone I want in jail for any reason without having a lawful reason. I have that kind of power. And there's nothing you can do because I have indemnified immunity. Like I can get away with breaking the law because I'm a government official. That's the kind of government we have right now. And right now they're starting against Trump. And for those of you who don't like Trump, you know what? You may be cheering right now. But again, every government who's done stuff like this, and Stalin put his opponents in jail. Adolf Hitler put his opponents in jail. Uh, Ming, not what the heck is his full on name? From the Ming Dynasty, that guy that was in the leader of China, the emperor of China, or the dictator of China, he put his opponents in jail. It's not new for dictators who just end up causing lots of destruction to put their opponents in jail. rather than face this guy and actually, have a full on um debate and also beat him. No, they're throwing allegations against him, which are not sticking. They keep proving that they're not, and then they're getting the American ignorant. They're getting them riled up by saying, we got him indicted, making it sound like he got convicted. And then they ask, hey, what are the charges? I don't have to tell you what the charges are because, the law doesn't make me require that. So you're bringing charges against a man, but there are no charges. That's what you're saying. I don't have to explain that. So they want answers from us, but they won't give us answers when we ask them. The press secretary of the White House currently does the same thing. There's like there's a couple of African reporters that have gone in there and tried to get questions from her, and she never calls on them. And then she's like, it's like she has something, even though she's black, it's like she has something against African reporters. Maybe it's because they're more on it, like more blunt. They're not biased toward one party or the other. They just call it like they see it. Maybe that's the reason. If you look at their politics, they call it like they see it. They're not trying to sit there and be woke or, pander to anybody. They're honest to what they feel and they speak their mind. Same thing with Australian news. They tend to be very honest and honestly, like if you're a little on the heavy side and you're out there, they'll be like, look at that tubby over there. Like they'll actually do that. That's the kind of people they are because they have thick skin, they joke with each other, and they're not afraid to speak their mind. They don't care what other people think of them. And for some reason, like we used to be that kind of people. We used to not care what people thought of us and actually speak our minds. And then something happened to where we're now afraid to have an opinion over anything because we're afraid of offending somebody. And then there's other people on the other side that are looking for reasons to get offended. Now, I know I digress on that point, but like I'm saying, this stuff is really horrible. Like the stuff that's happening in our government is horrible. They are giving money to other countries and then they want to take away the money from the very people who fought when you wouldn't. And this is not to sound, um, condensating to, or not condensating, condescending, condescending. It's not to sound condescending to anybody. It's just to make a statement of truth of like what's really going on. They're trying to take money away from people who lost limbs just because they have $120,000. You should not get penalized for making a success of yourself. What right? Like, because think about it. Like the people that are always trying to tell you to look at Donald Trump's tax returns and the people that are trying to tell you that they're going to make the wealthy pay for everything, those people are all wealthy. Every one of them are wealthy. They could stop working today and live their life the same way. They're living wealthily, but they're not going to be paying taxes. During a debate with Hillary Clinton, Trump said the same thing. Trump was like, absolutely, you're dang right. I don't pay taxes. And you know why? Because I know how to use the system. But let me tell you something else. Hillary Clinton's friends don't pay taxes either. The ones that fund her campaign, she been in government for years, and she could have closed that loophole if she wanted to, but she hasn't. Why? Because her friends and her donors are the ones that benefit from the same tax breaks I do. So when you hear Bernie Sanders and other people saying that they're going to make the wealthy pay the taxes for everything, it's BS. It's just to make stupid people fall for them and go, "Oh, I'll vote for that guy. I like what he's saying." Because they know you're not gonna go look and actually do the research that that's not gonna work. Free college is not gonna work. Free healthcare, it's not gonna work. The reason why free healthcare won't work is because that money has to come from somewhere, and if it's all coming from our tax dollars, at some point, our medical care will become not too different from Canada. I've never been to Canada, but the people that I've known that live there, they explained to me that the way the Canadian, healthcare system works is that basically it's like a priority system. The oldest in Canada, and I could be wrong. I'm going off of basic the information given to me from someone who lived in Canada. Um, they said that the priority of the elderly is on the lowest totem pole because they have the least to give Canada, and the youngest are the ones that get the highest priority because they have the most to give Canada. So that's how they rank whether or not you're on the top of the list for a donor or organ recipient or whatever the case may be. So having a competitive market, that's actually what really makes things effective. Now, they are pushing this vax. Like I'm talking about a lot of things because this is where their money's going. They're taking money away from people who absolutely need it while giving it to the people who don't care about money, who are just greedy. Big pharma It was behind all the vaxes made. All the medication made, like, it cost them, like, cents on a dollar to make an EpiPen, yet they charge us, like, 300, $400 for an EpiPen. Anything that can save your life, any type of medication that can save your life costs you hundreds of dollars for one small little tube, and it only cost them, I don't know, like 15, $20 to make? How come the government hasn't said no? Anything that is a life-saving medication such as, Narcan and, um, I'm not really big on, like, all the other medications, but, like, Narcan and epinephrine and, um, other medications like that, how come those medications are not forcibly lowered? The government can use the military to actually mass make, because you look at Pepto-Bismol, that's a brand. Pepto-Bismol is a brand, and then you look at the Walgreens version, which is the exact same thing. They make the knockoff version, which is the exact same thing. It's just a different brand. So I'm sure the government can also make the exact same thing as an EpiPen and say, "We're just gonna go ahead and give this to everybody." It comes out of $20, it's gonna be like $40 a pen. But they don't wanna do that. Why? Because the people funding the campaigns of these politicians are big pharma and other organizations. Just follow the money. You'll see who's in control of everything. The loudest voices are giving the most money to the government officials' pockets. That's just kinda how it works. But it's infuriating to betray the people that protect you most. And now at the risk of sounding arrogant, I'm gonna say this, and I felt this way before I joined the military. The American people owe us a debt because we fought while you slept in your bed. Our men and women put on a uniform, slept in the freezing cold, marched in the pouring down freezing rain, worked in the desert at 120-degree weather without getting paid hourly, without getting paid overtime. No matter how many hours we work, we got paid the exact same based off of our rank. So if we come home without a leg, a foot, a body part missing, or PTSD or some other type of element that we got from war because we were told to go by the government, it is treachery and downright treasonous to try to take away money that is given to compensate the loss of somebody else. No other person would appreciate that. If you lost a loved one, let's say you lost a loved one, and they have what is called SGLI in the military, which is like it's a life insurance policy. If you lost your husband and you're supposed to get $420,000 because that's the life policy that he signed. Um, he went to war. He was killed in action, unfortunately. And then the government goes, you know what? We know you have a loss, but we think $420,000 is too much. I know that's the policy your husband signed up for, but we're going to go ahead and limit that down to, $35,000 because that's all you need. You don't need $38,000 to bury your husband. You only need about $5,000 to put on a nice ceremony, get him a plot. And yeah, we're good. That's it. That's all you're getting. People will get pissed off and you feel betrayed. You get so livid, like, and saying, what right do you have to take away money that is rightfully mine? You took my husband. The least you could do is give me the money that he put aside for us in case he died. That money is to take care of our family when he's gone. That's what that money was for. That's why he got it. So for us, compensation is to take care of us in the event that our company fails or in the event that we have extra expenses that we need to pay. In this day and age, marriages are not lasting like they used to. So if your wife is making $128,000, it doesn't mean that she's going to stick around and be there. Same thing with a husband. Some people just don't understand what marriage is anymore. They just think that marriage is convenience and that when it gets hard, you can leave or you should leave because it's hard and you don't want to deal with the drama of being hard. It's supposed to be all rainbows and unicorns and ponies. That's the image that's being spread around now. And that's why I feel betrayed by our government. These people that come out and they have the audacity to go to military bases and campaign and say, "Look, we care about you. We love you. We want to thank our servicemen and women who are fighting in uniform." The very people who stand outside the White House. They're out there protecting these embassies. The White House, they're the first ones to respond when it gets really bad. They're the ones that go in. When there's mass riots, they send in when the SWAT team can't handle it, they send in the National Guard because they can't handle it. If our country's being overran, they mobilize the military. We're the ones that go in when no one else will. If your ship is sinking, the Coast Guard goes out and either saves the ship or saves you or dies trying. That's part of the military. Like that movie Captain Phillips, which is based on a true story, where Tom Hanks plays a captain of a cargo ship from the Maersk, Alabama Maersk. A bunch of Somalian pirates came over and hijacked the ship, and who do they send in? They sent in the SEALs, and the SEALs ended the lives of those pirates who tried to mess with an American. Special forces go through more than anyone else in the military. They suffer the most rigorous training regime. They endure the most post traumatic stress because they have the most combat engagements. They see some incredibly crazy stuff and they deal with it. And then the thing that they have an incredible skill of doing is giving us the image by seeing their demeanor that everything's okay. They know what enemies are actually out there. The ones the news doesn't talk about, the ones that nobody else knows are right there in your own backyard. They know they're there. Yet they act like nothing's wrong because America can't handle knowing just how many enemies we have surrounding us on a daily basis, just how often we're threatened, just how many explosives are found in different places that the media doesn't hear about because of the fact that the military got to it first. The military does so much. America owes a continuous debt as long as there are military members, especially those who are volunteering. America owes that debt. So if they and then if they want to cut costs, they need to talk about cutting the cost of these politicians making money and making millions and millions of dollars being corrupt, doing nothing, sitting in Congress and arguing and wasting our tax dollars on impeachment hearings that have absolutely nothing to do with what's really going on, just to make somebody look bad. In addition to that as well, if we want to talk about corruption as well, we need to also do something about the elections. We need to unite and do something about the election process. Because right now, people can easily say, "Oh, there's so much evidence that this election was not fair, that there was a lot of corruption in how it was run." And the thing is that maybe it might be a Republican this time who was the victim of an unfair election. But what happens if there's a corrupt Republican next time that corrupts the election? We have to make it to where a corrupt election is not even possible anymore by demanding that every person that goes in and votes has a lawful ID from the state. They're able to show proof that they can vote. They scan that ID that it is a real legitimate ID, and then they go and vote in person. There are no more mail-in ballots like that because mail-in ballots can be fabricated. That's one of the most common things to find during any election. There's always people that get mail-in ballots, that are from dead people or people that don't even have citizenship. That's the kind of the government we're dealing with right now. And the whole purpose of me saying all this stuff is right now, if the government of the United States is willing to steal money from the people that suffered most by going to war for everyone else, they are going to take away the very baby formula or milk from your children to prove a point. When you are willing to stab in the back the people who protect you, you'll stab anyone in the back. That's how real this is. That's how serious this is. If those same government officials can indict a former United States president without actually saying what charges he's being charged with in the indictment and even leak the sealed documented indictment letter when it's supposed to still be sealed and have no charges. And then Hillary Clinton literally has paid multiple people off in her campaign funds. It was documented. It was alleged she was even fined, yet no charges are brought against her. If we're going to say nobody is above the law, we need to say nobody's above the law. and actually charge who's guilty. Charge with it. There's tons of evidence on the Democratic side of them doing the very things that they were trying to allege Trump did, but nobody's being charged. This is a warning to you, whether you like Trump or not. The fact is that you really don't realize that you might not, or excuse me, you may not realize that you are in the crosshairs of the United States government. They're just not pulling the trigger right now because there's no need to. But at some point, they're going to want more money. There's lots of things they can do to cut the budget. They can stop funneling money to Ukraine for one, because Ukraine has other allies which can give them money, but it's always us. Two, we can stop funneling money out to other organizations that are not helping America, not benefiting America. Stop this nonsense. We're sending out billions and billions of dollars. And if you look at all these stimulus bills, I mean, if you actually read the stimulus bills that were passed under the Trump campaign, that the Democrats like the requirements that the Democrats actually demanded to be inside these, in these stimulus payments, they demanded that certain millions of dollars would go to people who donated to their campaign, which were all wealthy individuals and organizations, which had nothing to do with helping bail out America. Money always goes to the rich and wealthy who are contributing to the campaigns first, before it goes to the American husband and wife who are struggling to put food on the table for their kids. Because you're not convenient, you don't matter until it's campaign season. Think about it. When's the last time you seen a House Speaker going to their district to go talk to the people and have a town hall about how they can help them? When's the last time you saw a president going out, you know, to talk to American people when it wasn't close to campaign season? It was just because we love you, we're here for you, we want to help, get your roads right. When's the last time you saw a governor going out and doing that? They don't do that until it's campaign season or there's a major photo op available. When there's a big disaster, that's when, governors will start going down to ground zero and go, "Look, I'm here. I'm here to help. We're going to help you with all we can." And then, Biden doesn't go until like he's super pressured, like, you got to go. People are getting pissed. It shouldn't have taken that long. You should have been out there the first day it happened. Like, well, let's get out there. Let's figure out a way to get out there and see what's going on. This is the world we're living in, folks. And again, it's hurtful, man. It really sucks because I've talked to these people who are struggling to rehabilitate, people who've come back from war who are learning how to walk with a prosthetic leg, women who've lost husbands who are trying to struggle and trying to deal with just surviving without their rock. And I'm not saying that only men are the rock, because in a marriage, your partner is your rock, and vice versa to them. My fiance, she's my rock, and I'm hers, and together we're two rockheads. But like, it's sad because I see where this is going. And if you really do study history and look at what's happening, they're textbook planning for an invasion. They're trying to, but like, defund people who were in the military. They're trying to defund the military. They're weakening our military. They're weakening our masculinity. They're weakening our children's minds rather than teaching them education. They're sitting there focused on, you know, who their teacher has sex with. And the reports that happen with these kids in assemblies and what members of the alphabet community are doing in front of these children is getting ridiculous. Like, I saw a video where I haven't watched it yet, but the headline of that video was two alphabet members uh like completely undressed in front of children, like in an assembly setting. So I haven't watched the video, I haven't looked into, what they're talking about, but like, it wouldn't surprise me because they're doing drag shows where drag individuals are in lingerie dancing very sexually in front of these little children. It's really interesting. Very, very interesting. Does anyone else have anything that they like to say about this? Like, what are your opinions? Do you know anybody? Do you have a member in your family who relies on disability compensation? Do you rely on disability compensation? Have you lost any limbs, or do you know anyone that has lost limbs and how that money has helped them? Feel free to join me on here. I can only speak from my own personal experience, and living in Los Angeles, having this disability compensation does make my bills stretch just a little bit more. Just because for those of you who don't live in California, um, there's like a $1.20 tax per gallon of gas. We have some of the highest gas in the nation. There's no reason we should be paying a dollar something extra. Other states do like 10 cents a gallon, 5 cents a gallon, but the government makes so much money in so many ways. They're not broke. They're just blowing their money stupidly. And think about this. We keep voting for these same government officials. We keep voting for these same politicians. And then we get mad when they're doing the same exact things. Albert Einstein said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. When are we going to wake up and realize that we're doing the same thing? There's so many homeless out there, and the homeless population is suffering, and people just don't care who are in your government. They're just like, "Oh, you're a Democrat. I'm gonna vote for you because I don't trust Republicans." Why? Have you actually looked at the policies? Have you read what they stand for as a Republican Party? Have you read what the Democrats stand for as a party? I keep hearing people talk about, oh, how Republicans are the racist party. But I distinctly remember that in 1916, the Ku Klux Klan was founded by the Democratic Party. And again, Joe Biden elected or nominated the first black female Supreme Court justice. Now, a lot of people are like, that's great. That's wonderful news. I'm so happy to see that and hear that. That's history in the making, but history for the wrong reason. Because before he even not like interviewed anyone or talked to anybody, he completely isolated every other culture except for one culture and one sex. Black women. That's all I'm investigating. Now, let's turn let's turn the tide. Let's say, okay, I'm a CEO of a company. I own a very successful company. I'm going to hire somebody, but I'm only going to hire an Asian woman. A lot of people are going to be like, "What are you talking about? Why? Why would you only hire an Asian woman? Are blacks not good enough? Are whites not good enough? Or are Indians not good enough? Like why only an Asian woman? How come you can't just see the best candidate for the job?" This is again another Democratic handout to the black community. This woman that got sworn in to the Supreme Court, she did not get that position because she was the best person for the job. She got it because of the color of her skin and the gender she was born with. That is it. Because there are other judges out there who are equally as incredible, who are white, who are Asian, who are Latino, who are Indian from India. There are judges from all over the world that are just as good as her, if not better. Some of them massively better than her, but they nominated her because of the color of her skin. Even when that works in our favor, it's still not okay. A wrong is wrong, regardless of how it's being done. It's wrong. I do not want to be nominated to a position of leadership or promoted to a position of leadership just because of who my dad is or who my father or excuse me, my brother is or who my friends are. I don't want to be lifted up and given a job just because of the color of my skin. Kind of crap is that? I want to get a job because I'm the best person for the job. But people can't see that. People won't see that because they want too badly to see that, excuse me, they want too badly to see that we have a black sitting female Supreme Court justice. Like, yes, finally we got one in there. Really? Is that really good news? If he was going like for me, if I were the president and I wanted to nominate a black woman and see a woman in there, I would not have said, me personally, I would not have said, I'm going to nominate the first black female to the Supreme Court. I wouldn't have said that. I would have said, I'm going to interview a number of candidates and we're going to see who we come up with. And then she would have been the selection, which would have shown she's the best person for the job out of the people I nominated. That's how you do that. But before this woman was even a talking point, they said, I'm gonna nominate a black woman, the first black woman to the Supreme Court. I think that was a load of crap. That was racism against every white person out there. That's a white that's a racist against every white person, every Latino, every Asian. It's racist against every non-black out there, and it's even sexist to all men. Even though, like, yes, we had black men there, and we have a Latino in there right now. We still don't have Asians. Aren't they good enough as well? Like, I'm just sitting there. We're focusing too much on race, and the government is really, really putting a magnifying glass on race. Think of the Black Lives Matter movement. They're putting all of our attention on the wrong places. They're spending our money in the wrong places. The millions and millions of dollars to the Black Lives Matter movement that were donated to BLM were actually funneled into Democratic politician campaigns. And what did those founders do as soon as they got all that money? They left the ghetto, they left prominently black neighborhoods, and they moved into prominently white neighborhoods. They didn't invest any money into the black community. They didn't show up for Black Lives Matter when 400 people were killed in Detroit. 400 black people were killed in Detroit. They don't show up when little girls, little black girls are murdered by drive-by shootings. They don't show up for then. They only show up when a white cop kills a black man, which is racist because they're not the only ones doing it. And white cops are also killing other white cops. There's a lot of white people being killed by the police department. You never hear about them on the news. CNN, MSNBC, they won't talk about that stuff because they're told not to. They want racism to stand. They care only about one thing, dividing us so we can't stand against them. And look at what this division's doing. They're taking money. They're talking and discussing the possibility and likelihood of stealing money from the most vulnerable people, people who can't defend themselves anymore because they don't have legs, because they don't have hands, because they don't have strong medical awareness for their mental abilities, because of other ailments that they suffer. They're like, yeah, you know what? You guys are making too much money. We're going to take it away. Well, what about you guys? Every one of those politicians out there, every one of those politicians out there talking about this kind of stuff are making way more money than any of us veterans. We're just trying not to be a burden on society by getting up and making our own money as well. We're not trying to sit there and mooch off the government like a lot of people who abuse welfare are, and like a lot of politicians who are sitting on their freaking butts doing nothing but taking our money, but they want to take away our money. That's the thing that infuriates me. We're being betrayed by those we protected. Put yourself in our shoes. I'm asking every one of you people out there listening right now, please write your Congress people, write your senators, write the politicians responsible for your areas. Stop them from doing this because I'm warning you. If we don't rise up, if you don't spread the message to stop the government from taking money away from us, the military is going to resent the government. The military will stop fighting. They will strike because we matter. And yes, we took an oath to support and defend the United States. Yes, we did. But you see the news has been out there. We've seen when police departments that were defunded by democratic policies and laws saying we're going to take money away from the police department, they went on strike for an entire day. And look how much crime happened as a result of that day. If word gets out that the military refuses to fight until we're treated equally, because this isn't the same era, the same mentality of World War II, World War One. When that war started, there were CEOs, there were company owners, very successful people, professional athletes that are like, no, I'm going. I'm joining the military because it's a responsibility. I'm going to protect my country. They didn't need to be drafted. They signed up. It was honorable to sign up and protect your country. But today's society, where everyone's talking about, let's say, it's about feelings. Let's all appreciate our feelings. Let's give everyone a freaking fourth place trophy. Let's give everyone a participation trophy. Let's put biological men and women sports because it's about being tolerant and about being inclusive. And it's about making sure that every person that comes in, that's involved actually gets an opportunity to be heard and accepted. That's the kind of crap they're feeding on us. So it's making our mentality much weaker than it ever has been. What's up,
Hello,
brother? How you
hello.
doing? Welcome. Hello?
Can you hear me? I
I
don't think
can
I
hear
can
you.
hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Are you okay? I think your headphones, your earpiece might not be
Well,
working.
it's actually discussing betraying our veteran. They betrayed the American government, first of all, as a business. United States, United States, look it up, is a corporation, and they have betrayed all of their citizens. Um,
I agree that
but I
this is a
do need some.
corporation.
I
I
do need
agree
some help
100%. But I will ask this. In
with
any
law. If anybody
corporation,
knows, you can add me and chat with me. Um, I gotta file a default judgment, but I'm not quite sure what all to include in it in my affidavit. So if anybody knows something about the law, and if anybody's listening, um, definitely follow me and send me a message. But the American government,
all right, that's not what we were talking about. We are talking about the American government betraying people and betraying its American citizens. As you were saying, you were actually off to a good start, but your appeal for legal help had nothing to do with the subject, so I cut you off on that. Um, but to get back to your correct point that you did say, you did say that the American government is a business, it's a corporation, absolutely, 100%. But no corporation would fire its best employees, its most effective employees. No, like the news media outlets that we have out there, um, they have armed security right at the front doors. You have to go through the armed security to get to them. You don't see people going out there and shooting up these like CNN, MSNBC. You don't see people just walking in and just start shooting up the place because they know these people are armed and they have armed security. Yet we see this happening in schools, and then people want to like I saw a person get on like a conservative individual get on a CNN news episode, excuse me, an episode. I'm having a brain fart. A CNN news episode where the conservative individual actually brought up the point I just brought up, saying that you don't get people breaking in and shooting up your studio because you guys have armed security. Yet you're opposed to schools having armed teachers and having armed security, armed police officers, and controlled entrance points. Why is that? Isn't that hypocrisy? Aren't children very, very fragile and very important? We need to treat our schools as high value places. They're not considered high value places, which is why they don't have armed security and armed officers there. But look at the Jewish schools. They have their own armed security. You never hear people going out there and shooting those places up because they know better. They're going to get hit by some special forces or former special forces security standing right there with well armed weapons. They're not playing. They will protect those kids to their lives, for to the last breath of their life. So if every one of our schools had walls that had control entry points, had camera footage to watch if every one of our schools was built to have 1 to 2 entry points or 3 entry points, and they have armed security on every one of those, our kids are going to be safe. But the government doesn't want to do that because they know that it would actually counter their argument and stop for people from being afraid of guns. So what do they do as a result? They instill fear. I keep seeing the weapon of fear being used and applied by the Democratic side. I keep seeing that over and over and over. If Trump gets elected, we're going to have a nuclear war. He's going to have a nuclear war. World War III is going to happen. We didn't start any new wars under Trump. He ended them. He actually established more peace since before Bush, excuse me, since before Bush Jr. and Senior. He established peace in the Middle East. That man did so much for this country, and none of it was ever talked about on the news because people wanted to keep others being afraid, calling us ultra MAGA Republicans, making us appear to be terrorists, making us appear to be un-American because we had a voice that was different from that which they said. We're seeing evidence of people trying to like censor other normal Americans in Twitter and social media. Look at all the words you're not allowed to say on YouTube or TikTok or Twitter or any other place before Elon Musk bought Twitter. Look at all the trigger words you could not say. Look at all the statements you could not do or say. Yet you can make insult. You can make the most racist insults against white people all day long in your videos, never gets taken down. White people can complain and say this is not correct, this is racism, and they won't take it down. But the minute a white person says something that's suggested that you can even take out of context as racist, someone reports that and then their account gets deleted or suspended or they get a strike or something like that. Racism is racism and it's wrong, regardless if it's against or for. The fact is racism is wrong. We need to fight for, what's right. We need to fight for what's fair. There's no such thing as assault weapons. The government is feeding you this title to make you afraid of guns. Guns don't kill people. I've never heard of a gun just shooting itself and firing itself off to murder somebody. It doesn't happen. But when you put those same firearms in the wrong hands, then yes, they cause damage. If you put a bat in the wrong hands, it causes damage. If you put a butter knife in the wrong hands, it causes damage. Put scissors in anything you put in the wrong hands can cause damage. Guns aren't a problem. And I'm telling you, they want us to believe that them removing guns from us and will make everyone safer. But the government's still going to have their guns. You're going to have people that are going to go out and enforce whatever the government tells them to do. That's always going to be a given. So if you can't defend yourself against a tyrannical government, whether right now it may be Democrat, it could be very much Republican in the future. You can have a tyrannical Republican in office. This could happen. But that's how we stop the possibility by saying you're not taking our guns. If you want to stop gun violence on schools, you need to build those walls around schools to protect them and put armed security on them and make sure that the word gets out that this school is armed and protected and deadly force will be met for anyone who attempts to try to hurt these kids. If they know that, they're going to think again. Now, this is my what I'm about to say is a little more my extreme opinion. Um and this is honestly how I feel. I think that if the government were to initiate a new law that says anyone who massacres innocent people, like in a public space, like a store or a school or anything, anyone who goes and starts assaulting innocent people like this with firearms, every death should result in a sentence of 8 hours of physical torture per day for that person. 8 hours per day per person that was killed in that situation. And everybody who was injured, it should be 4 hours. And then that person will the person that did the act should end up going to a prison cell that is completely padded and at 75 degrees. And they are completely naked. They have no clothing. They're not allowed to do anything. The only time they get to come out is when they're about to be tortured. That is very harsh. It's very inhumane. Absolutely. But what is the result? Because right now, and I'm telling you, when I was in Iraq, terrorists would surrender all the time. Like after they got shot up and stuff like that, they would surrender, and they ran out of ammo because they would rather surrender in American custody because they knew they were going to get 3 hot meals a day, they were going to get a warm bed, they're going to get mail, they're going to get treated humanely. So there was no downside. If you died in action, you got blessed and you went to go see Allah, and you got your verges, etc. And if you got or get arrested or taken into American custody, you might get interrogated a little bit and beat up a little bit, for the interrogation process. But after that, when they realize they've gotten everything out of you, you're going to get 3 hot meals a day. You're going to get treated humanely, and there's no worries. You're going to be with your buddies. So there's no real consequence other than just being locked up. But even then, you don't have to worry about staying in the heat anymore. You don't have to worry about being poor anymore. You're taken care of. It's kind of a win-win to them. So for those people who are thinking, you know what, I want to go up and I want to shoot up a school. Those people that are thinking that, they're going to realize, man, if I shoot up a school and I survive it, I'm going to end up getting tortured for every person I get. This ain't worth it. So what's to stop them from offing themselves? That's a good question because I thought about that too. Police officers should be able to have trank darts where they can shoot the person you know, and put them to sleep. And then when they wake up, they're in that little special cell. That's what I would do. I would just make the consequence for doing heinous crimes more vicious because these types of crimes, they're not just being discovered days after. They're like 90% of the time, these type of crimes are happening and people are being caught the same day. They're being caught at the scene because they refused to leave, and then they got shot on scene, they got brought out in the hospital, etc. They're caught that day. So if there's ample evidence that that person is the person that did it, if the sentences are ruthless and very painful, it's less likely that somebody's going to do it. Case in point, how many times do you ever see like for example, when's the last time you heard of somebody going into a Hell's Angels convention and trying to rob people? That's never happened. I'm willing to bet everything I have. That's never happened once. No other persons went inside of a Hell's Angels like a meeting or anything and or a gathering and said, "All of you guys, give me your money." They'll come out looking like Swiss cheese, and they know that. So that's off limits. No one's ever gonna go to like a blood convention. I'm not talking about like blood drawing. I'm talking about like the gangsters' bloods, the Crips. No one's ever went to a mafia meeting and try to rob everybody because they know better. No one ever tries to go to a cartel meeting and try to rob the people because they know that the consequences are just not worth the risk. So if people who are willing to do these types of heinous acts realize that the consequences are extraordinarily severe, they're less likely to do them. They're probably close to guaranteeing that they will not do them. That's just how I feel on that subject. But I just believe that our government is blowing money to their friends, and then they're taking money away from us. It's like if we had a dad that had a severe gambling problem, and rather than stop gambling so much and throwing his money at the casinos, he put more money into us. Instead, we end up losing our house, so he's gonna stop buying food for the kids. He's not gonna buy us food anymore. He's gonna still pay the rent so we can keep the house, and he's gonna still keep gambling, but then the gambling gets worse. So now we're gonna lose our house. We're losing everything that matters because he wants to fund a habit. These politicians wanna fund their friends and screw America, and we are too divided to fight back. I know every one of you guys could be anywhere you want, and I'm very grateful that you have invited me into your houses, into your homes, into your lives, into your ears, into your jobs, your cars, and into your hearts. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you for choosing to be with me at this time. Thank you for listening to what I had to say. I'm just really hurt right now. I'm not surprised, but I'm hurt that the American government would betray or even consider betraying our veterans, the ones who stand between them and an invasion. And it seems very clear that the government is focusing on making us ready to be invaded. It seems like that's their plan. And if that's their plan, we better wake up because no other country would run our country better than we do. And right now, the people that are in charge are not doing a good job. The only response is to take them out of office. Please stop voting by party. Don't vote for Republicans just because they're Republican, and don't vote for Democrats just because they're a Democrat. Vote for the best candidate. Make your voices heard. Go out, unite people with you, and start standing up. Republicans and Democrats can unite on things we have in common. Regardless if you're part of the alphabet community or you're conservative, we all want our kids to go to school safely. We all want free speech and we all want our voices to be heard. No one has the right to censor us or silence us. And we need to unite to keep that right. Otherwise, we're going to lose it. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Until next time, this is Real Talk with RJ, signing out.